Thanks for tuning into this presentation. You're about to either watch a video or listen to audio recorded at the Grassroots Radio Conference in 2012 at the Independent Media Center in Urbana, Champaign. Please enjoy.
Thank you all so much for joining us today for this first part of the Get On Air Clinic. We want to start by doing a go-around and a little exercise that we have that's called If I Had a Hammer. So what we're going to do is go around, briefly say your name, organization, and where you're from, and then we're going to pass around this hammer and say, if I had a hammer, I would blank. And say what you would do with a hammer. And the idea of this is to make a connection between radio as a tool. So my name is Jeff. I'm from Philly with the Prometheus radio project. And if I had a hammer, I would build bridges.
Hi everybody, my name's Nate. I'm a volunteer with the Prometheus radio project in Philly. And if I had a hammer, I'd build a radio tower.
My name is Wayne. I'm from St. Louis. I'm associated with an organization that works with immigrants and refugees. And if I had a hammer, I'd find a way to make it better for the immigrants and refugees.
Okay. Hi, I'm Doug Greer from Kansas City and a media reform group called Friends of Community Media. And if I had a hammer, I'd give it to somebody who needs a hammer more than me.
My name is Bryn Bird. I work with Rural Coalition. We're an organization that works with farm workers and minority farmers and rural communities. But I live in Ohio on my family's 100-acre produce farm. And if I had a hammer, I would work to build a better local food infrastructure.
My name is Dave Goodman. I'm from Boston. One of the hats that I wear is I'm an independent producer based in Boston. And if I had a hammer, I would smash my daughter's piggy bank and use the money to build a radio station. Just kidding.
My name is Nick Clark. I'm with Rochester Free Radio and in Rochester, New York. If I had a hammer, I would build a wireless park.
I'm Sharon Scott. I just spilled my coffee all over the floor, so if I had a hammer, I would turn it into a paper towel. But I'm with WRVU Friends and Family. We're an organization trying to save a radio station that's been on, a college station that's been on a deathbed for about 2 years now, WRVU Nashville. And also the more positive thing I'm working on is a thing called Art FM in Louisville, Kentucky, and we're trying to start an arts-focused LPFM.
I'm Jennifer Waits, and I'm a college radio DJ at KFJC in California, and I also write for Radio Survivor and Spinning Indie. And if I had a hammer, I would help make a home for the college radio stations that have been kicked off the air.
I'm Nick Russo. I live in Amherst, Mass., but I work in Florence at Free Press as an intern and as a broadcaster at a couple of different radio stations in the area. And if I had a hammer, I would build a birdhouse for all of the radio birds to nest in at their home.
Nice.
My name is Jaime Chavez. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Southwest. And I'm a founder of the Raíces program at KUNM Radio, which has a large FM distribution throughout the state. I do have a hammer. I'm a community organizer with the Rural Coalition, and we work in rural communities across the country. And we have a number of projects on deck right now, but we're really concerned about the issues like the Farm Bill and what have you that need to be addressed just because of the impacts on folks in this country. And basically we're here to look at supporting low-frequency stations in rural areas.
Thank you.
Ouch, I stubbed my finger. No, just kidding. My name's Sue Skirman. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Came this far just to see Jaime. No, we haven't met, we've only talked, emailed. From Quote Unquote Media Center, and that's a former public access station as of a couple of weeks ago. We all lost our jobs. I was a trainer there. And now we're trying to get it going as a volunteer-run organization. And one of the things we want to do is start an LPFM station, so that's why they sent me here. And if I had a hammer, I'd probably knock some sense into City Council so they wouldn't have caused us to lose our contract.
My name is Talon Curran. I'm the operations manager for the 6 Mile Regional Library District in Granite City, Illinois, which is just outside St. Louis, Missouri. And we'd like an LPFM in our library if possible. So basically what I'd do if I had a hammer is build a brand new 40 or 50,000 square foot library that had plenty of room for a radio station and a bunch of other stuff too.
My name's Tom Clammer. I host a show called Tell Somebody on KKFI in Kansas City, www.tellsomebody.us. And if I had a hammer, I would hope it would be kind of a heavy foam or something and hammer people in the head to alert them to the potential for community radio and the great need to try to realize that potential.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm with the Prometheus Radio Project. If I had a hammer, I would use it to pry open the cages which are holding all of our comrades that are political prisoners.
I'm Joe Newman from Fayetteville, Arkansas. We've been trying to get a radio station for a while. I'm working with different groups, including Omni Center for Peace, Justice, and Ecology, which some of you may have had some association with in the past. I've been, I've got a long history of organizing with Acorn, with Occupy, and so on. And low power FM radio is the best thing going right now. And if I had a hammer, I have to echo what was just said here. Lightly tap some of the members of our community who are generally great activists to help me out. I want to be the instigator. I don't want to try to run the whole thing myself, which is impossible. So I need to get some people out there to assist and take over, basically.
Hi, my name is Lena Bugs, and I'm with Twin Cities Community Radio from Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and I also host a show called African American Women in Politics. And if I had a hammer, I would use it to hammer out racial and social injustices.
My name is Pam, and I'm here with my husband. But if I had a hammer, I will help him build the biggest and the best radio station in Decatur, Illinois.
Well, you heard that from my wife. My name is Alexander Martin, and the radio station that I'm working with is an internet radio station. It's Martin Tips on Inventions Christian Radio, and looking forward to the FM license here where we can help the community and everything. And if I had a hammer, I'm an inventor, so if I had a hammer, I would invent something where we could stay on the air without getting jumped off, anything like that, or without any confusion like what we're doing now, trying to get the stations, where something can be invented where we can just automatic get a station.
Oh, I've had
Hi, my name is Brandy Doyle. I'm the policy director at the Prometheus Radio Project. I live in Washington, D.C. And if I had a hammer, I might call in some inventor skills. I would build a high-tech super bed where I could get a lot more of rest in fewer hours a night, especially for conferences, so I could be around and meet more people and spend more time with folks and not sleep. Yeah.
My name is Betty Yu, and I'm with the Center for Media Justice and the Media Action Grassroots Network, part of this national organizing effort to get folks to sign up for LPFM stations. If I had a hammer, I would lightly tap, as someone said, the FCC, so that to allow big urban cities like New York City to be able to start their own low power and maybe full power stations that are run by community-based organizers and organizations.
So that would be my hope with my hammer.
Hello, my name is hello, my name is Francisco, and I come from Phoenix in Arizona with a coalition, and we're starting up a community radio station. There's already things happening with radio and media, so we're just taking next steps. So if I had a hammer, I would find whoever has wood and whoever has nails, and we would build something.
Bueno, pues yo no hablo inglés, hablo español, pero él me va a traducir. Mi nombre es Rosa, vengo de Minneapolis, St. Paul, y soy una líder de la comunidad latina. Pertenezco a White House.
The Latin community in Minneapolis, and she is from the White House.
Y pues este martillo yo utilizaría. Hay personas que nos ignoran y creo que valía mejor para utilizarles en ellas para que nunca más nos ignoren y que nosotros también valemos.
She would use it to tell the people around that we have rights as well and that we have a voice.
My name is Jovita, and I am a community organizer at White House Community Center, and we're building a lot of things in Minneapolis, and one of it, it's Mujeres en Liderazgo. We already have our radio station, a program at KFAI, and this is to continue to raise, to hear, to be, someone can hear our voice and what we need and what we want. And if I will have one of these, I will hit Mark Dayton to give us a driver license for everyone. That's the campaign that we're working on it. And plus the one project, another one, the city ID in Minneapolis, so I will use it for the garage shift.
My name is Brenda Montes, and I'm part of the National Hispanic Media Coalition, and my organization has been involved in definitely promoting LPFM stations, just doing several, just a lot of work in telecommunications policy, but I specifically work on the hate speech campaigns against John and Ken. They're a conservative talk show host in LA, and I guess if I had a hammer, everybody's so peaceful, but I would definitely tear down Clear Channel as much as I can. I know everybody hates them. And I guess in the peaceful side, build more stations.
Hi, I'm Michier. I am the founder of REC Networks. REC Networks has been around for about 28 years now, but for the past 15 years I've been working very closely on getting LPFM legalized, and have been advocating for LPFM for the past 15 years. I also run a lot of online tools that you can use to help you get on the air. I do a lot of research and put out a lot of reports, and with the window coming up, there's going to be a lot more coming out soon. If I had a hammer, I would find a way to get every single metro area and every single city on the air with at least 2, if not 3 LPFM stations.
Hello everybody, my name is Josue Vicente. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I work for the Ohio Hispanic Coalition, a nonprofit agency who has been in existence for 22 years. Pretty much we do almost everything on behalf of the Latino community there in Central Ohio. And then we realized that communication is one of the challenges that we're facing in the Spanish-speaking community there. So low power FM, I guess, is the solution for us to educate, to reach out to different communities, not only the Hispanics, but as well some other new immigrant communities they have coming to Central Ohio as well. And if I had a hammer, I would probably build affordable housing for victims of domestic violence and give them more information as well.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Maria Graber. I'm the Community Radio Director at Prometheus. I'm also with WPEB, a community radio station in Philadelphia. And if I had a hammer, I would smash all the private equity firms that have destroyed commercial radio. I'm not finished there, though. I would also smash lobby groups like the NAB who try to
keep going.
Get in the way. We might have a tap with NPR they're also trying to get in the way of community radio. And locally in Pennsylvania, I would smash all the new prisons being built and also all the hundreds and hundreds of fracking wells that are ravaging our state.
My name is Candace Clement, and I am from Massachusetts, Western Mass. I'm also with the organization Free Press, and we do a lot of work on policy, and so I guess if I had a hammer, I would start figuring out a way to get policies passed so that everybody had a hammer so that y'all could do the great things that you want to do with your hammers.
Hi, I'm Kim Lemkiel from colorofchange.org. We're a national civil rights organization that has offices in the Bay Area, in California, and also in New York. And we're going to be working specifically with what have been historically underserved communities by radio that are overrun with clear channel stations, which are Black, and for the first time it's going to be urban communities in the United States, which we're really excited about. And if I had a hammer, I would make sure that everybody could access really hyperlocal news and information about where they live so that we don't have to listen to the same national crap that's rebroadcast everywhere and not have any ideas what's going on in our own community.
All right, so my name is Steven Renderos. I'm the national organizer at the Center for Media Justice. And if I had a hammer, I would use it to rebuild a media infrastructure that supports our movements for racial justice, economic equity, and human rights. And then additionally, I would use it to knock the FCC in the head to do their job and actually address the high cost of prison phone calls, which is a campaign that I've been working on. And they totally have the power to change the fundamental experiences of people who are dealing with incarceration and having to pay exorbitant rates simply for having a loved one in prison. So I'd knock them in the head with this. Thank you.
It's the second day of the conference. I'm losing my voice. I'm Danielle Chenoweth with the Prometheus Radio Project. I'm also with the Independent Media Center, and we have a low-power station here, WRFU. And if I had a hammer, there's the personal and there's the political. The personal is I've been trying to build a fence in my house so my child can run around without running into the street. I'd like to get to that at some point this summer. And I also would like to tear down the prison and jail walls and the nursing home walls and integrate, not isolate, folks in our community. So thanks for coming to the first part of the Get On Air Clinic. One of the reasons we talked about if I had a hammer is because, like Betty talked about in the opening plenary, radio is really a tool, just like Mabano Kantako used it as a tool to organize and talk about police brutality and housing projects in Springfield, Illinois. Radio is a means for us to make a transformation happen in our communities. And so it's not really an end in of itself just to have free speech, but for us to actually be able to make some impact. We're really excited that you all came from far and wide, Phoenix, New Mexico, the Twin Cities, California, to be able to join us, to be part of this exciting kind of birthing of this next generation of community radio with the low power FM licenses on the horizon. And with that, I'd like to, excuse me, Brandon. Yeah, if we can just keep it circulating. We want to make sure, we want to make sure that we can connect with all of you all. Just so you know, the entire Get On Air Clinic is going to be archived, so you can share it with folks back home. And if you can sign up with us so that we know that you were here and we can stay in touch. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff Rousset, who's heading up outreach efforts at Prometheus Radio Project, to kind of introduce the clinic, and let's get started.
Hey everyone. So we've got lots of builders and smashers in the room. That's good. We need both, right? We need all that. Well, yeah, we're way more constructive than destructive.
Yeah, true. But.
So we're going to talk a bit about, briefly about the, the timeline and kind of the process where we are now, and then we kind of broke the process of getting an LPFM station into three pretty distinct phases, right? One is the preparation phase, where lots of us who are preparing to start stations are organizing our communities right now and doing various things to prepare for when the application window opens. Then there's the application phase when after the FCC announces the rules, where we'll be actually applying and filling out the application and getting engineering studies done. And then there's the build and broadcast phase, which a number of people in this room are also in right now. So what we're going to do in a few minutes is we're going to break out into smaller breakout groups and talk about where we are in this timeline and where we've been in this timeline, and then we're going to get back into a group and reflect on that and talk about where we are. So right now, the FCC is indicating that the filing window is going to be in the spring or summer of 2013, which gives us that much time to prepare and get our groups together for the filing window. Also, we expect that there will be availability in much of the country outside of the top markets like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit. Unfortunately, there will be 0 or maybe 1 or a couple stations available, but it's going to be really hard. So in terms of the outreach that we're doing, we're reaching out to folks mostly outside of those huge urban markets because there's more availability and there's more opportunity to start stations there. So what we're going to do now is...
Crowdsource as a group at first.
How so?
Okay. So what we wanted to do is to help together to think through what the process is going to look like, and to also hear a little bit more from each of you about some of the stories for how you've gotten to where you are. So I know at Twin Cities y'all have an exciting story about having found a free space for your station. There are some folks here who are already on the air who can talk about raising their tower. What we wanted to do is to talk through a little bit these three phases: preparation, applying, and building and broadcasting. And so what I wanted to do is to ask, I might have to relocate just the two of you all. Hopefully I can push my feet over here. The other So let's talk a little bit about the process of preparing to apply for license. And some of you all might be closer in this place, but let's talk about what are the things we need to prepare to apply for a license. Any ideas? What are folks engaged in doing right now to prepare? Go to a conference, yeah. So we got conferences and meetups.
Partnerships in the community. People
Okay. Yep.
Other community radio stations.
Yeah, you want to do this, right? Cool. So
Visit
it's that.
and learn from other from existing community radio stations.
Learn from others. Okay, so find a nonprofit. Since you can't be a for-profit entity to apply for licenses, you have to be a not-for-profit. You do not have to be a 501c3, but you have to be educational in character. What else to prepare?
Or start your own nonprofit.
Or start your own. So find or start. That's right. It is the case that it's likely that if you work with an existing group that's been around for 2 years, that you'll get additional points and your application will do better. So it is okay to start a nonprofit, but do know that that may hamper your ability to win the license. So we're oftentimes asking folks to work with an existing group that's on the books. Other
do a very initial search of your frequency
Exactly.
availability to see what your chances are going to possibly be.
Exactly. Mitchie, who has the tool to do it, you search for a channel and see if there is a possibility for your channel. Go ahead.
I think to survey our membership throughout the United States to see if in fact how we can take advantage of this window.
So you're with the Rural Coalition. So in the case of a national group, you might want to, or a local group, survey your membership, see who's interested to seek this. Go ahead.
Okay, you say you do not have to be a 501c3, you do not have to have...
We're not anticipating that the FCC will require you to be a 501c3.
Okay.
I mean,
not-for-profit.
so...
You have to be a non-profit.
Our understanding, where's my cousins here? Our understanding is that you have to be a group with an educational mission. And that it may behoove you to be registered as an not-for-profit. Go ahead.
The libraries.
Yeah. Brandy, what libraries are a not-for-profit organization so they can apply?
Local government.
It's local government. We're considered local government, but you can donate to us and write it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other things you need to do to prepare yourself to apply.
You know, because of this networking function right here, I mean, there are a number of existing 501c3s, is to figure out through the networking how some of those can be used as umbrellas for other groups and organizations as well, since it's a federal tax ID status.
Yeah, if you want that, you don't have to be a 501c3, but if you want to be an entity that could receive donations that are tax exempt, then you can move in that direction or pair it with somebody. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm coming to this totally green, and so what I want to know is what are the steps to apply and do it right and not screw it up, and then figure out how much time I would need to do that, how much help I would need, start delegating tasks, is there money required, how much money, raise the money.
So plan. Great, thank you for bringing that up. Things are going to move pretty quickly when the FCC announces, and we expect them to announce this fall. So it's great for you to start planning now. Thank you for being a planner in the room. You're my species, which is to start thinking, what are the steps? What is it going to cost? What's the timeline going to look like? So that you don't just get caught last minute. Go ahead.
I think I understand what you're saying. I've heard people say fall of this year and then spring and summer. Is fall when they're going to talk about the channel allocations, and then spring and summer is the applications?
So our understanding is that fall is our best guess as to when the Federal Communications Commission will release the rules for the contest.
That'll tell how many channels.
Those rules will let us know where those channels will be available, in addition to other things like what you need to know or what criteria for applying.
So then 6 months later, then you apply.
Exactly. Approximately, yeah. Yeah, so that's part of planning, is to think about the steps and what the criteria might be. And at Prometheus, with the help of our policy team, Brandy, and our station support team with Vanessa and Anna, we work to try to look in the crystal ball and see what do we think the FCC will set in terms of the rules. Other things to prepare.
In the preparation process, you also need to think about how the radio station is going to work in your educational program, because you're going to need that for the application process anyway. So think about what kind of programming you're going to run, and how is the station going to further your organization's educational goal.
But I would add to that you should have a good plan for how your station will further your educational goal. Nobody, and I say nobody at the FCC, will ever read that or evaluate it or think about it in any way, because it's their interpretation of the First Amendment that you are the best judge of the educational mission, that a bureaucrat in Washington is not the best judge. So you could say my educational program is to educate the public about the virtues of Metallica and the possible sub-virtues of, you know, Stryker or whatever.
Exactly.
And they will say, fine, you are as good as anybody else with that educational program.
So on that topic, it might be more useful for you to be thinking about what is the role of your station in your community? How is it going to meet your community's needs? What are those needs? Who is silent? Whose voices need to be heard? And to think about that, not just to fill out a piece of paper that the FCC may or may not read, but because it's an important part of you thinking about what the impact of your station is going to be, and to figure out who is going to be at the table. Other things, go ahead.
Did I hear you say you're not sure what the criteria are going to be and you have to guess at them?
The FCC has not released the rules for the LPFM contest. We can deduce based on prior windows and our very frequent conversations with them what those rules will be, but we can't promise anything until the FCC officially releases those rules. And so we have a pretty good sense of that, and we're here to help guide you through that process. So it's not a complete crystal ball.
Backing up to the planning process, it's important to have some coming out of here for groups that are starting with small, medium, or large budgets that project what the activity would be.
Yeah, and I'll add to that fundraising. So you can start fundraising now for your station. And once you receive the license, you will have 18 months to get on air, so there's more time to fundraise. But the fundraising now can help for things like an engineering study that may be needed to apply. Anything else before I move to the next thing?
Just one thing, you're not awarded a license, you're awarded a construction permit. You're not awarded a license until you build the station and start transmitting on the air. And so during that time is when you have to, you know, get your stuff together. It goes by really fast. Right now there's a number of full power stations that have 3 years to get on the air, and we're seeing a lot of people with 3 months, 1 month left, you know, to get on the air. And so, you know, you want to use that time wisely. And there's this LPFM in Bisbee, Arizona, and they went on the air 2 months after they got their construction permit because they had $10,000 in the bank that they fundraised while they were waiting to receive their construction permit. And I asked them, well, what were you going to do with the money if you didn't win? And they're like, oh, well, we were going to make a documentary or build a studio, or we would do something with the money. So I just want to motivate you and encourage you to start collecting those dollars, because the more money you have faster, you know, the more quickly you can get on the air.
So,
Instead, and expanding upon the educational mission statement, I think all organizations today have mission statements. So I'm thinking of, you know, if you're selling this to your community, they need to know exactly what it is that you are attempting to do. And if you read a lot of LPFM mission statements or other community radio mission statements, they can vary quite a bit.
Is there any group that's waiting to get online that already is making media or streaming but doesn't have a broadcast license? You are? Yeah. So that's another thing you can do. You can actually start making media now. You can stream online, and that can be a way to bring your group together. Just any last thoughts with preparation?
I have a question on that real quick. Will that make any difference to the FCC if you, say, bid online as an online station when you apply?
I was going to say, the other thing that we might want to also take into consideration during the preparation process is securing the site, securing your studio site, and especially securing where your tower is going to be, because you're going to have to deal with zoning. And they're going to see you as like they might see you like a communications tower, like a cellular tower. And
I have a question for you, since you're Rick Networks. So, but how do you know where that tower should be located before you do any engineering?
There's going to be other conferences today on that, kind of on tower siting and stuff. There's a whole workshop on. There's a whole engineering workshop. And But you may want to, what I'm trying to say is you may want to feel out with your city governments and find out what the zoning regulations are going to be, whether you're going to be able to put a tower like at your headquarters, or whether you're going to need to find a nearby facility or somewhere, or a mountaintop site or a tower.
So what we're calling the preparation phase, we're basically calling that now until the FCC announces the rules, which happens right here, which we think is happening this fall. And then we go into what we're going to call the application phase, which includes securing a site with studio and tower and things like that. So I'd like us to move to this part, and then we're going to open it up to ask you to share some stories of ways that you got these different things done, so you can share some of that information with other folks in the room. So on the application, thank you for starting the next set. So in terms of applying, what are some of the steps from the time that the FCC sets the rules until it closes that, what might be a 5-day window in the spring or summer, till it closes that window? That second part, what are some of the things that you all need to do during that time?
I was part of a group that applied in 2007 for one of the full power stations, and a critical piece is having a broadcast engineer as part of your group to do the survey of the area to make sure the station doesn't interfere with other stations. And you can maybe do it yourself, but we needed a broadcast engineer to fill out the engineering portion of the application.
Yeah, we heart broadcast engineers. And we'll need a lot of them. And yes, for most groups, especially for many groups, especially in urban areas, you'll want to secure the services of a broadcast engineer to do a study, to help you conduct a study. And there are a number of ways that you can secure that, and we'll go into more details in the other sessions.
And one other thing, in 2006, 2007, it cost us $1,000 to hire the engineer, just to give you a rough idea of what the cost is.
It's also the case, and we'll talk about this too, that Prometheus, working with RecNet, has helped to develop some tools that help you do that study, and we have an open source tool called R-Free, so you can do some of that work yourself. And for places in rural areas, you may not have to hire an engineer, where it might be easier for you to locate. Any other things?
Well, just another thing about the cost. When we did it, we tried also to get the full power station. It cost us over $3,000 for engineering study.
How long in advance do you guys expect to know when the application window is going to be open? Do you think that the FCC is going to tell you months in advance, a month in advance?
We've asked for 6 months, at least 6 months notice. During the full power window, they did not give adequate time, so it was really hard, for people to apply. And so
We work in DC too, and I've noticed that in a lot of windows we get, they will tell us a week before next week's the window. So I didn't know.
we don't know what they'll do until they announce the window, but we certainly advocated for that.
Other things you need to do in this application phase. Maybe find out what the rules are and figure out how to turn them into plain speak that you can understand. That's what we're here for. We'll be taking those rules and producing a manual that is not in FCC speak, that says what the rules are and how you can apply. So making sure you get that manual from Prometheus and are able to use it to decode the FCC rules.
I would suggest it's very important to acquaint yourself with the FCC website. The application is online, but unless they've streamlined their online site in the last 5 years, it's a labyrinth on the FCC website. So definitely start now. Go through as many pages in the media section of the FCC website.
And Prometheus, in that manual that you produce, will say things like, go to that thing and click on it, and go to this and click on that, and here's a picture of what that page is going to look like. So don't get too scared about that process, because we're really going to help you through it. We'll also have a help desk for you to call for help?
Yeah, they have created a new site. It's in beta form right now, but it's also pretty scary. But one of the things you need to do to apply is create a CDBS account with the FCC, and you need that number in order to submit an application.
What's the word?
CDBS.
CDBS. What does that stand for?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Some bureaucrat acronym.
Centralized database system. We're going to have to create a centralized database system account.
Can we do that now?
Yeah, you can do that anytime.
And the manual you're talking about, the database manual, is that available now? Or?
It won't be until the FCC sets the rules. What we are working on is an overall manual for how to apply, working on that with Free Press. And so we'll be launching that in the next month or so.
Another thing that is important to say is when the window is open, we don't really know like if it's going to be 2 weeks or if they're going to be creating different windows for different regions. So, but the most important thing to know is you need to have all this information ready by that time. So that's why we're trying to work with all you to have all that information whenever when the window is open, you can just go there and apply.
So call us for help. You can do that. And
What's your phone number? 215-727-9620.
Take two.
That number, once again, is 215-927, or 727-9620. 727-9620.
And all your cell phone numbers.
That's for me. You're going to fly.
okay. So anything we're missing from this section? Maybe you should also actually apply.
Can I just ask quickly, we talked about all the things we need to get together. Could we list quickly the things that we will need, that we can guess that we might need now? So we need to be a nonprofit organization. We need to have an engineering study.
You have to have a frequency.
Oh, okay, frequency picked out, a site for the training center. Is there anything else?
Can we look at the old application to get an idea of what they're going to require?
Yeah, I mean, it's helpful, although the technical part of the application will change significantly. The non-technical part is likely to stay the same. And on that note, one of the things you have to do to apply is you need to have documentation of your nonprofit group. So articles of incorporation, all your board members, names, addresses, that kind of thing. And you have to prove if you're going to go after the additional points for being in existence for 2 years or more. And the language is actually that you have to have been engaged with the community for 2 years or more. That might change to 4 years, we don't know. But regardless, you have to prove that. And a lot of people didn't get the point, not because they didn't meet that requirement, but they failed to submit the proper documentation. And so especially if you are an older organization and you still have things in paper format, start tracking those documents down now and scan them and get electronic versions.
Can you give examples of what would be considered that community involvement?
Yeah, community engagement, I think people submit examples of board meeting minutes and events that they have done. But it's a lot of like the organizational stuff, their 501c3, if they have it, articles of incorporation and bylaws.
But I understand it might be possible even if you're a new organization, but you've been doing things in the community, maybe not officially established as a nonprofit organization, that you might be able to use some of that work before you established as a nonprofit organization to prove that you've been engaged with the community?
Yeah, it's possible, but again, until they lay out the specific criteria, which they might actually tighten up, I don't foresee the bureaucrats to make looser criteria. It's likely that it goes the opposite direction where they actually make it harder.
Can you find another like group who has been in the community who would want to work with you on
Yeah, but
being a
that's what happened
sponsor?
at WRVU. We had a sort of parent organization, and then they decided to sell, and we really had no voice. So if you partner with another organization, I mean, the lesson is just make sure you really trust this,
Right,
because once you get a
yeah.
frequency, it's actually a pretty valuable
That's
thing,
true.
and people start seeing dollars
Right.
So it's kind of, to me, it's dangerous with my past history. I'd rather just have our own organization.
Better have your own.
Vanessa, on that, in our mission statement, because we are a new organization, do we need to have any specific language, like saying we're an educational organization? Is there anything specific that you know of by now that we should?
No, your
be
mission
saying?
statement can be whatever. The mission statement is usually like, it's usually the opposite, that organizations who want to start radio stations have to evaluate whether or not that's in their mission. But since you created the organization for that purpose, you shouldn't have any problem. The FCC is not concerned about your mission statement. They just want you to put it down. And the same thing with the educational programming. They don't really care if it's Star Wars station or...
Exactly. The commission just wants, the rules basically state that you're furthering your educational program. I think those are the exact words that they use pretty much, is educational program. You could, like if Petrie said it, you said it, everybody, you could be doing Japanese pop culture education. You could be doing the theory of Doctor Who and the TARDIS and Daleks, for all I'm concerned, but it's still an educational program. They cannot say, oh, well, your educational program is not as good as this person's educational program. And, and that's the way a lot of churches get on the air, too, because Bible study to them is education. And, and that's basically it. It's the station has to further your organization's educational program no matter what it is.
So this is super helpful, and I know that a lot of what we want to absorb at the conference is the details of what we need to win licenses. There's a Get On Air Clinic Part 2, which comes right after this, where we're going to go much deeper into exactly these questions. How do you win a license? And issues of collaboration, making sure you dot your I's and you cross your T's and all that good stuff. What we did want to do is kind of give more of the broad sketch. So I'm going to pull it in just a minute, but know that those questions are going to get answered. And just sketch out this last phase of it. And then I'd like to ask folks to tell a few stories, call some people up, and just so we can share, how is it that we located a studio or did the fundraising, et cetera. So what are, so say we close the window, okay, and there's kind of this middle part that I'll just put up here, which is that once the window is closed, as Vanessa says, you don't have a license just because you applied. You apply, and then if there's competition, you have to work out the competition. So working out, we call it MX, but it's working out competitions. And there are different ways that could look. But oftentimes it involves working with other groups, collaboration in your area to win those licenses. And then if you win, you awarded a construction permit, so you get your construction permit. And then you have those 18 months to build and get on the air. And then you're awarded the license. Go ahead.
I'd just like to clarify for folks who don't know that MX stands for mutually exclusive. So it's when there's multiple groups that want a station in one area, the FCC is only going to give out one license, so the groups have to either work together or compete against each other for that one license.
So let's do quick, 4 things that you have to do when you get to building and broadcasting. I know it feels like it's way out there, but just planning in the future. What are some of the things you need to do to get on air? Once you have the license in your hand. Yep, so you gotta build your studio. Yep, and with the equipment, you have to put your tower up or locate a place where you're going to put your antenna. So you mount your antenna. Anything else? Yeah, there's some people involved. You gotta gather and train some volunteers. All right? Yeah, so your governance structure kind of works throughout, but you definitely have to kind of implement your governance structure.
What are you guys going to put on the air? Transmission, experimental sounds?
This is the
Yeah.
test.
Programming, you
All the
said
things
it.
we talked about in preparation, you know, that's when it's going to finally all come together and come to light.
Produce.
You didn't train anybody in the preparation.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah,
You never had practice sessions. Go back to the.
Yeah, so, okay, so are you saying that before we go on the air, you might want to actually
Learn
practice?
how to use the equipment.
Okay.
Find some old junky equipment and train people how to
Yeah,
radio
so
DJs and all that.
we strongly encourage people who want to start stations to, in this preparation area, to start making media. It doesn't have to be 24/7. Maybe it's just your station's podcast and you put something up once a month and then you increase it to once a week so that you get your name out there and people know that you're organizing. This is a great outreach tool if you can start making media now. Anything else we're missing from this?
Well, I thought this was not going to be part of the workshop, but perhaps it might be, you know, the programming structure for whether you have, are you going to have a program director or are you just going to have someone who puts, organizes the podcast or whatever media is being created in your community?
Or syndicated programming, if you're going to be part of Pacifica or some other network.
Yep, so
And-
syndicated content, that's content that you get from other places, you know, that you pull down from other places. And Ursula will be talking a little bit about that in a session. So these are things actually you could do in those 18 months. You'll also be, of course, fundraising, right? So you'll be raising money, but you can start putting your programming structure together and figure out where your content is so that when you get on air, you have stuff to go in
You
there.
might have creating a governance structure of some kind.
Exactly, yeah. So if you want to design and implement your governance structure. Anything else?
Fundraising.
Barn raising? What's a barn raising, Anna?
A barn raising is the conference that we have been putting together as Prometheus, and when we go to the town, we help the group of people that's building the station to bring volunteers, and to create all these trainings and to build the actual station, not just by yourself, but then with the help of all the people that is around right now.
Yep, and you don't just have to fundraise, you can fundraise. By having fun, having events, getting people excited, having musical opportunities, connecting with emerging artists and musicians, have fun, charge some money to help get the station on the air, you fundraise. Okay, so I'm going to stop us there and just ask if there are some folks who could share a few stories of different stops along this path that you all have gone through. Different places. Is there someone who has a good story? Is there a group that has searched for and found a channel, and how did you go about doing that? Is there anyone who's already done a channel search? Could you share?
Well, Rec Networks is the best place to go, and they offer free tools, but you can donate and help them out online there. But Rec Networks has a channel search where you can put in a community or an actual physical address, and I think they keep honing that based on what they think the new regulations might be this year. So there's an LPFN channel search, and Mitchie can really elaborate well. But we did that, and we found that there were possibly, also it's hard for me as not a technical person to interpret it exactly, but three frequencies came up, one right after the other. So I'm not sure if that means only one of them can be used or all three could be used, because I don't know what the interference would be. So we found that in our town of Fayetteville, and then Prometheus also put out some information about what would happen if there was more waivers on second channel waivers, and then it looked like we'd have 11 or 12 possible channels. So we don't really know what's going to happen, but that's a great place to start.
Just to explain that piece, and we'll go into more detail, the law that was passed allows for a certain number of channels in an area, and if we want to put more channels in that area, you would need a waiver, and we're working to make sure that those waivers are available, like water, and so you can do an initial search, which gives with RecNet, and with the Prometheus site also has a place, and with our free. These are different tools you can use. Sir, you had a story as well, though, about.
I just happen to be associated with there's two internet radio companies or radio stations in Omaha that are coming together to create the low power FM, Kine-Air and Community Talk Radio. Well, Kine-Air had already started working with a radio engineer.
Great.
So we were fortunate enough to have a radio engineer on board from the start, and he's already done all the work on the frequencies, what's available, and also location of antenna and the transmitter. So we're that far ahead. We just need to get a little more organized and roll it out to the public.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, being an engineer involved early on, if you can find someone in your community to be part of the volunteer structure, that's great. Anyone else want to tell a story from this preparation phase? David?
Back in 06, 07, we applied for one of the full power non-commercial licenses, and two takeaways. One is that we had the engineer do a survey, and we told the engineer, get us as close to Boston as possible. We knew we wouldn't be very close, and he found 3 open frequencies, one of which was in Burrillville, Rhode Island, which couldn't be more different from Boston than any other place, very, very rural. But one of the requirements back then was you had to put all your application materials in a file in the local library in the town of record, which in this case was Burrillville, Rhode Island. So I had to drive from Boston down there. And one good thing to do is while you're down there giving the library your application packet, talk to them and find out a little bit about the town. Use the local librarian as a resource. Now, I don't know if that rule is going to change with LPFM, but that's what we had to do 5 years ago. The other thing is we were in a situation with that license where we were in a mutually exclusive situation with 15 other applicants. It was highly competitive. We wound up not staying in the race. But part of this process is to try to ally with other groups that have also applied and maybe forming a station with multiple organizations. And we found it very difficult to get in touch with these other applicants. They weren't returning our calls and emails. The takeaway from that is be persistent and don't take it personally, because other applicants' lawyers are telling those groups, oh, don't talk to those other applicants in some cases. So don't take it personally, and be persistent as you can, and knock wood, we'll all have the means to stay in the race if it's very competitive.
Yeah, so building coalitions is really important, and you may be forced to when you get to this competition stage, but you can start here by finding the allies and building that trust, and also setting up agreements in writing, and there's a lot of information about how to kind of build coalitions where you don't necessarily have to rely on trust, but you can have agreements in writing going into that coalition. Sir?
That MX space, that's not forced upon you by the FCC. That's just an intelligent thing to do with that phone.
No, it is forced upon you.
It is?
If there's multiple groups competing for the same frequency, to say they were competing for 105.3 and you have a group here, a group here, you're all MX together. And even if you are not the same frequency, but a nearby frequency or an overlapping signal, you can get grouped together. And you can have, 20 or 30 groups together across state lines in what's called a daisy chain. Yes, you are forced to be
So
in
the
an
FCC doesn't necessarily pick a winner, although he described a situation where the other groups didn't want to work with him.
No, the worst case scenario, unfortunately, is what's called a timeshare, and then there is no real winner. If everyone has the same amount of points and you're unable to negotiate or work out the competitions, as Danielle said, then it goes to a timeshare and you have to share the station. And I don't know if you really want to share the station.
You can be
with
on the air for so many hours and they can be on.
Yeah.
Or you could get a hammer.
Actually, let let me just interject on there. Actually, in the first Windows, there was actually something even worse than a timeshare, which was the ultimate, and that was the successive license. If there were two equally qualified applicants based on points, and no one was able, then they weren't able to settle, what they did was they gave both organizations a construction permit. And it was a race to see who would get on the air, who would get their license covered first. Once you get your station constructed, you had no authority to go right on the air. Instead, you submitted a form to the FCC. They would in turn give you a 4-year non-renewable license to go on the air. And then the other station would have to wait 4 years to go on the air. It was.
But we're not expecting that in this window at this point.
We're
So that was
hoping
a bad idea of the past that we were hoping to bury. I do, just to pull folks back into, I know we want to go real technical into how to win. That's part 2. So part 1 is we just want to get, kind of hear from folks and share some stories about what you did. Did you have a story you wanted to share?
Yeah, I joined, in Albuquerque, I joined the advisory board of an organization called Available Media Incorporated, and they formed some years ago. I don't know how many years ago there was. When was the last window?
2000 to 2003.
That long ago. Wow. They must have formed then, and they applied for 3 stations in one in Gallup, one in Grants, and one in Tohajali. And they got the Gallup and Grants one. They never got Grants really off the ground, but they're in the process. Like Gallup, I think, is already airing. There was a competition for Tohajali, and there was, I think they awarded it to New Mexico Highlands University, but it was appealed. I don't really understand it all. I think the folks I work with are more the engineering types and not so good on the communication, whereas I'm stronger on the communication and don't get the engineering at all. But anyway, they hired a lawyer, spent $3 grand, lost the appeal. Just a big drain of money. But, so that's a story.
So before I moved to New York a few months ago, I was living in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and I was part of helping start the Twin Cities effort. And what we did early on was actually, I downloaded, or actually I got a toolkit from Prometheus. It was like a summer toolkit that they put out maybe last year or 2 years ago. And it had a wealth of information of how to actually just get people together to have a conversation about this. Because that's really where it began for us. Me and my colleague Danielle, we essentially just went out and hit up our community contacts, organizations that we knew. These were organizations that weren't media organizations, right? So there was a little bit of discussing and figuring out whether this was a good fit or whether those organizations could see a role for radio in the work that they did. And sure enough, with everybody that we sat down with, and we did a ton of one-to-ones, everybody had some story, some connection, some need for radio. And so we brought folks together in a meeting, and that toolkit that we were using had sample agendas, had sample activities, had everything you would need essentially to get something up and running. And from there, we started last September, and we just kept meeting on a monthly basis. And now, I mean, it's grown beyond beyond the folks that I was involved with initially. So.
And Twin Cities is really a model for pulling together a coalition early on and meeting with folks and addressing, kind of identifying community needs. So we strongly, all the folks from Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, can you raise your hand? These are folks who have been doing this work, who really, Prometheus, we think of you all as the model nationally for doing this, so please connect with them. I do want to call on you to, is there someone who could talk? You all secured a free studio site with a partner. Is there anyone who could tell that story about how you did that? How you secured a location? Are you willing to share?
¿Cómo decirlo? Necesito decirlo en español. Entonces, quiere que comparta entonces la historia cómo hicimos nuestro programa, ¿verdad?
O cómo encontramos el sitio para la estación en White House.
Pues primero nosotros encontramos la base de la comunidad. Primero tenemos un grupo de mujeres en liderazgo, que este grupo de mujeres no salían en la casa. Primero querían aprender todo lo que es liderazgo.
So firstly, they found a base from the community. So they found a group of women who wanted to learn, que querían aprender
Liderazgo.
liderazgo. Yeah, they wanted to learn leadership in the community.
Y después fuimos explorando un camino, llegamos al punto de trabajar en la legislatura estatal, cambiando leyes con las licencias de conducir.
So through their journey, they ended up changing legislature in the level of getting driver's license.
Y después nos dimos cuenta que al trabajar esto, pasar esta ley o esta propuesta de ley, no teníamos suficiente información sobre la conexión con los medios de comunicación, porque no se nos hizo como una barrera de entrar en las estaciones de latinos que tenemos, que usual siempre pasan, no dejan mencionar o estamos en esta lucha a la comunidad, y eso fue donde nosotros vimos la barrera y dijimos, no, tenemos que hacer nuestra propia estación de radio.
When they were going through this, they wanted to change the driver's license situation, they found themselves in the struggle that the local media would not allow them to outlet the information, and they had, in a way, not a way to communicate to the community, so they decided that they needed to either host a radio show or get it in the media.
Entonces fue cuando empezamos a investigar por medio de la organización donde trabajo, que se llama White House Community Center, es una non-profit organization, y ahí fue donde empezamos a investigar que KFI tenía un programa comunitario, y entonces fue donde empezamos con un programa que se llama Wave, algo así, no sé cómo es que se llama, pero un programa que hacen cada año.
So they began to research through this organization that is called White House, and they found out a program from the
KFI
program. ¿Qué hace ese programa?
Es una estación de radio.
Oh, that's a radio station, and they found tools.
Y aplicamos con todo, nosotros preparamos ya con toda la historia de las mujeres, basado en esas historias, basado en lo que queremos. Fue como preparamos la aplicación, hicimos nuestro mensaje de la aplicación, o sea, todos juntas trabajamos en llenar esta aplicación y aplicamos.
So with the story of these women trying to change the legislature, they came about to writing a statement and the application to apply for the LPFS.
¿Pudiera agregarle? Ahí fue cuando White House se movió al nuevo espacio que tienen ahora. Y ustedes ya estaban integrados en el esfuerzo ahí en los Twin Cities para Twin Cities Community Radio, y White House donó, como tienen un gran espacio, han donado una parte del espacio para esta nueva estación de radio. So, the effort, White House was involved in the Twin Cities organizing, and they already had a radio show at KFAI, so they understood the value, but they moved into a new space earlier this year. I mean, a big space, big community space, and they were willing to donate part of their space for the construction of a radio station.
So it's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. It's really awesome part of the story of collaboration is that oftentimes it doesn't have to be just one group that carries the full weight. Here at RFU is similar. It was a group of maybe 10 to 12 different organizations working together. They did need to have some natural affiliation and have similar kind of mission, but someone can offer a studio and someone else might be connected to a broadcast engineer and someone else has some equipment, and so each thread comes together with a different participant or different organization. I'd like to thank you for helping us think through these different phases and sharing some of your stories for how to get there. We'll have opportunities to share stories throughout the weekend, and we encourage you to connect with one another. What we'd like to do is to talk a little bit about some of the support system that exists for especially this phase here, going into here so that you can get started and you see what resources are available for you now. We'd also like to introduce some of our national partners and local partners who are helping to support applicants to go through the application process and get on air. So I'm going to switch to that part of the presentation.
there anybody who hasn't had a chance to sign in?
Get a little bit closer so you can see some of these resources. That way you know where you can access them. So if we just move on up and gather around so that make sure that you are able to see.
I mean, you were getting it before. Like, maybe with that. It's tough with that microphone's not really made for that situation. Right. But, I mean, I wasn't. That microphone's not the best for the situation. But thanks for your help.
Is everyone able to see the screen?
They break out that. Let them break out that.
All right. Geographic chaos. So we're just going to come back together for a moment. I'm sorry to interrupt your discussion, but you are going to have time at lunch to connect with each other. So if I can just have your attention for a few more minutes. Just want to make sure you know how to access resources that are important. Some we've talked about. This is the Prometheus website, prometheusradio.org. And we have an area that will help you do outreach to both your community and if you want to help with the larger movement. But specifically to outreach to your community, Stephen mentioned that there was materials that he had downloaded off of the Prometheus website. And those materials are available here. So we have a section called Start a Station. And we also have a section called Get Involved. And this part is under Get the Word Out. So if you come here, there's an entire, these are outreach materials that you can download that have your sample agenda, a sign-in sheet. You don't even have to make your own sign-in sheet. You can just download this. We have that I Had a Hammer exercise was one of the many exercises for icebreakers. So you don't have to sit up at 2 o'clock in the morning after you put your kids to bed and you finally got everything cleaned in your house and figure out what you're going to do in your meeting tomorrow. We have some samples for doing that. So we have a community radio organizing toolkit, and that toolkit is a beautiful printed piece that you can keep on your kitchen table and that has all these materials that you can use to get the word out about community radio and to gather your community together and start doing some of that community mapping and community needs work. So that's available to you. If you are interested, here's the popular education tools area that specifically has resources on community mapping, introductory exercises, things like that, and some of the background on that.
And a lot of these tools are, I think, what Stephen was talking about that they use in the Twin Cities to help bring together different groups and train people.
Yeah, and it also includes things like if you're trying to figure out how do I describe this opportunity to people in my community, we have a sample email right here. You can just take it and customize it and send it out to your community as is, so that you don't have to start with that. Here's our contact kit, so you can download it and get the sign-in sheet. Those are just important pieces. We also wanted to let you know that we run webinars, which are website plus conference call. If you just have the phone, you can just call in, or you can call in and also watch on the computer. Presentations about how to fundraise, how to build collaborations, how to locate a studio, how to locate a tower, what kind of equipment do you need, how do you win a competition in your community. All of these things are webinars that we host, and the latest webinars are on our website /webinars. And all the ones coming up, they're all free, and you can attend those webinars or have someone attend them. Go ahead.
Are the webinars archived, or do you have to
Yes.
catch them live?
Yep, so you can go to the webinars, and all the old webinars are here, presentation archives page. And so actually, if you work during the day or work at 8 o'clock when we do the webinar, we switch daytime and evening. You can actually see tons of webinars here. How to find an available channel with R-Free, that software we were talking about. An introduction, how to find a viable tower site. Social networking for community radio, and all kinds of good, juicy stuff for how to get on air is all here. So don't feel like you have to kind of start from scratch. There's a lot of support and resources for you. We also have conferences. This is one example of a conference, and we're going to have the Get On Air Clinic throughout this weekend. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. We'll also be at a number of conferences this fall, and we're looking for conferences to go to. So if there's a group of folks that you think we should connect with, please let us know. Jeff and I are good point people, but any of the Prometheans, let us know about a conference that's coming up that you think we should attend. There's a host of resources and tools, introduction, how to apply, station profiles, how to start podcasting, how to build your organization, popular education tools, all of this here. We also, you need to sign up with us and create a station profile. If you've not created a profile, you won't receive this information, so it's really important. But we put out, Ian, raise your hand, Ian, heads up the Bring the Fire email. And so for groups that fit a set of criteria, social justice related groups, they receive this broadcast email. And this comes out about monthly and has the latest information. So you don't have to be tracking things on the FCC website. We will get that information to you. We have a help desk. The help desk is, this is there's a telephone number, and here's our friendly help desk. It doesn't look like that. We also have a very quick lookup. Just go to our website, and every page has a zip code check. So you can do a quick lookup for your community. And we have something called Radio Spark. Radio Spark is very important that everyone here sign up on Radio Spark. It's the main way in which you can connect with other stations. So with that,
those are the computer up front.
What's that? Yes, and all the computer. You can go to, on any computer, go to radiospark.org, but we have computers set up for you to create profiles at the registration desk. Is there anything else I'm missing in terms of big sweep? Okay, I'd like to introduce some of our community radio partners who we meet once a week and we talk about how are we going to get a bunch of stations on the air. And so I'd like to first introduce Candace Clement from Free Press.
Hi everybody. So I'm with Free Press, and like I said earlier, we're helping some of the organizations that are interested in applying for radio stations. We have some folks on staff who have worked at community radio stations or helped out with the last full power window process, so we have some familiarity. We're working with Prometheus and all of the other groups and being here this weekend so that we can learn everything that we can, but we want to be able to be a resource. We're looking to work with groups that are in Massachusetts because that's where our office is based and we're able to connect with you more directly, or Colorado because we have a big conference coming up there in April of 2013, the National Conference for Media Reform. So if you're in either of those states and you want to talk to us, that'd be great. We're also interested in working with any arts organizations, cultural organizations that want to apply as well, or media groups in general. So just feel free to come talk to me, or Nick as well.
Great, and I'd like to introduce Kim from Color of Change. Kim, if you could talk a little bit about your role in the...
Yeah, so like I said, Color of Change is a national online civil rights organization. We have a particular interest in sort of access to information because we do so much of our organizing online, and are sort of looking at the LPFM window as an extension of that work, that radio can be another sort of microphone or platform for community organizations the same way that the internet is. And so we have a little bit of a broader geographic spread where we're looking at, but we're basically looking at cities with a large African American population, but again, not huge cities like New York and Chicago, more sort of secondary cities in the Midwest, in Wisconsin and Ohio, in the Deep South as well, and a little bit in Texas. We're open to other areas if people have really exciting groups, and we would like to get to know you, but that's sort of our main push at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Magnet, Stephen Renderos from Magnet is also a support and anchor in the community radio movement.
Yeah, so we're so the Media Action Grassroots Network is a national network of local social justice, racial justice, media and arts-based organizations. We are spread out into 12 different chapters. So we're particularly interested in doing outreach and support for groups that are located in and around where our network is located. So places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, quote unquote, like we'll be working with folks in New Mexico and supporting the efforts there. Minnesota is another chapter. We have chapters in Seattle, a chapter in Seattle, San Antonio, Oakland, Los Angeles. Unfortunately, those cities are not going to have an opportunity. But we're also particularly interested in working and supporting organizations that are doing criminal justice work, death penalty repeal work, because of a lot of our other campaigns which intersect very closely with that work. So, thank you.
Yes, I think Milena from Media Mobilizing Project isn't here yet. Has anyone seen her? So we have a couple of other anchors. Media Mobilizing Project works in Pennsylvania. So if you're a group in Pennsylvania, you know groups, they help to connect one-on-one with them. We work closely with the Main Street Project in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis. Danielle, unfortunately, isn't able to join us this weekend, but we work very closely with them, and they're working throughout Minneapolis. We work with Common Frequency, which is out in California. They're focused primarily on working with PEG stations, public access TV. So those are all support partners. And there's a number of groups we also work with, like the Pacifica Network that has a host of resources at National Federation for Community Broadcasters. I don't know if Ursula, is Ursula here? If you could, I just want to point out Ursula from Pacifica, who has been through this many times before and has helped many, many groups build and grow their stations. And she has a host of resources available. And we'll be doing a session on syndicated content, but is available to talk about a lot of different things and has support resources. So, with that said, we encourage you to come to all of the things on the Get On Air Clinic. We're going to break for lunch, and we'll be back here at 1:15. Thanks so much.
If you have your evaluation form, please give it here. We do lots of these conferences, and we're always...
You've been watching or listening to a presentation recorded at the Grassroots Radio Conference 2012 at the Indie Media Center in Urbana, Champaign. Thanks.